Hercules, the badass of all the legendary heroes of ancient Greece. From slaying lions to wrangling dragons, Herc's done it all and then some. Like many others, his tale also begins with Zeus and his divine dick. Zeus couldn't keep his thing in his pants and decided to seduce a mortal woman named Alcmene by disguising himself as her hubby. Next thing you know, Zeus is knocking boots with her, and bam, Hercules, the OG demigod, was born. But Hera, Zeus' wife, ain't too thrilled about this. She was hurling lightning bolts and cursing Zeus' name like a pissed-off soccer mom. Alcmene is shitting bricks cause she knows Hera is about as jealous as a Kardashian at a beauty pageant. So she pulls the ultimate desperate move and leaves little Hercules out in the cold. But fear not, cause Athena, the goddess of heroes, swoops and snatches up Hercules before he becomes coyote bait. Now, here's where shit gets real weird. Athena brings Hercules to Hera, who's so blinded by pity that she takes the kid in and starts breastfeeding him. But Hercules latches onto Hera's divine boobies and sucks so hard that he practically turns her nipples into industrial-grade fire hoses. Hera pushes him away so hard that her divine milk goes flying across the heavens, forming what we now know as the Milky Way. Yeah, you heard me right. Hercules sucked so hard he created a goddamn galaxy. Ain't mythology a trip? But here's the kicker. From the milk he drank, he gains the strength of 10,000 Terminators on steroids. When Hercules was only 8 months old, Hera sends not one, but 2 giant freaking snakes into his crib. But little Hercules got balls bigger than Zeus' lightning bolts. He grabs those slithery sons of bitches by the throat and plays tug-of-war with them like they're plush toys. So next time you think you're tough, just remember, Hercules was strangling snakes before he could even say mama. Fast forward a few years, Hercules snags himself a wife named Megara. They had a few kids together, living the ultimate suburban demigod dream. But even after many years, Hera just couldn't let go of her grudge against Hercules. So she casts a nasty spell on him, driving him into a rage-induced frenzy in which he ends up killing his wife and kids. When he finally came to his senses, the weight of his colossal fuck-up hit him like a minotaur's punch to the gut. Consumed by guilt, he drags his sorry ass to the Oracle of Delphi to figure out how to make things right. She's like, "Yeah, mate, you gotta serve your cousin Eurystheus, king of Mycenae, for 12 freaking years, doing whatever the hell he tells you to do." And here's the kicker. In exchange, Herc would be absolved of his guilt and would gain immortality. Now, Eurystheus is basically Hera's puppet on a string. She pulls the strings, he dances like a trained monkey. Hera, still nursing a grudge against Herc, whispers sweet revenge into Eurystheus' ear, telling him that Hercules has got to pull off 10 impossible stunts if he wants to wipe the slate clean. Now, these tasks ain't your run-of-the-mill errands. No, they're straight-up death traps designed to chew Herc up and spit him out like yesterday's leftovers. But hey, that's just how the gods roll in Olympus. You piss him off, you pay the price. The first labor was to take down this giant man-eating lion that's been terrorizing the countryside like it's open season on human flesh. This sucker's got fur so golden, it makes Midas look like a broke-ass peasant. And arrows? Forget about it. This lion's skin is tougher than your grandma's beef jerky. Herc rolls up to the lion's cave, armed with nothing but a club, and proceeds to beat the living shit out of that lion. But when the beast still ain't down for the count, Herc gets up close and strangles the bastard with his bare hands. Now, here's where shit gets real interesting. Herc realizes he's got a bit of a fashion dilemma. He wants to rock that golden fur like a goddamn boss, but he can't find a sharp enough tool to skin the beast. Enter Athena, again. She suggests using the lion's own claws to do the job. Talk about thinking outside the cave. Herc struts back to Turin's in his new attire like he owns the place. And what does King Eurystheus do? He shits his royal britches and hides in a wine jar like a scared little bitch. And from that day forward, Herc's got to present his trophies from a safe distance. His next target was the Lernaean Hydra, a giant serpent straight out of Hades' wet dreams. This thing's got more heads than Zeus got bastards, and a poison nastier than Medusa's gaze. One drop of that shit could turn your insides into a playground for maggots faster than you can say Jumanji. You don't mess with Hydra's poison unless you have a serious lack of brain cells. This Hydra's got Herc sweating harder than a sinner in church. Every time he slices off a head, 2 more pop up like goddamn weeds in a garden. Talk about a hopeless battle. So Herc calls his nephew Iolaus for help, and this kid's got brains to spare. He realizes that cutting heads ain't gonna cut it, so he busts out the big guns. Fire. Iolaus starts cauterizing those snake necks like it's the 4th of July, keeping those heads from growing back. After Herc chopped off the final head, he got crafty and dipped all of his arrows in Hydra's poison. Angered by Hercules' success, Hera devised an altogether different task for the hero. He is to capture the Cyrenian hind alive. But this ain't no ordinary deer. This thing could outrun Usain Bolt on steroids. Hercules chases this deer for a whole damn year. That's longer than my longest relationship. Finally, when Herc caught the deer, it turned out to be sacred to Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. Herc's sweating bullets, begging for forgiveness like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He promises Artemis to return the hind at any cost, and brings it with him to Eurystheus. But Eurystheus wants to add this deer to his exotic collection of pets. So Herc comes up with a plan. He says, "Sure, you can have it, bro, but you gotta come get it yourself." The moment Herc lets that deer go, it bolts back to Artemis in a blink, and Eurystheus is left standing there like a dumb ass with a dick in his hand. Next up, Hercules is on the hunt for a nasty boar that's been tearing through fields like a wrecking ball. And who's dishing out the deets? None other than Chiron, the centaur with wisdom dripping from his hooves like honey. Herc lures the boar into a snowdrift so deep, it's like quicksand for swine. For the next mission, Herc's standing in front of the god-forsaken stables of Augeas, filled with more crap than a sphinx after Taco Tuesday. These stables hadn't seen a bloody scrub in eons. But Herc strikes a deal with Augeas. Clean it in a day, keep a cut of the cattle. Augeas thinks Herc's full of shit and agrees. Herc rolls up his sleeves and gets to work like it's Judgment Day, and he's the goddamn executioner. He digs trenches, reroutes rivers, and floods the stables like Noah's goddamn ark. Filth vanishes and Herc shows Augeas who's the boss. For the sixth gig, Herc's on bird duty, dealing with the Stymphalian birds that shoot metal feathers like a goddamn Gatling gun. These suckers are nesting in a swamp so foul it could swallow Herc and his problems whole without batting an eyelash. So he busts out Athena's rattle, making enough noise to wake the dead and scare the birds into the air shitless. Then, with arrows dipped in Hydra's poison, he rains down hellfire on those birds, blasting them into oblivion. The seventh labor of Hercules was to capture the Cretan bull, a massive and ferocious creature wreaking havoc on the island of Crete. Now, this is the same bull that fucked Pasiphae, spawning the Minotaur. Hercules wrangled the bull into submission, ropes the sucker, and rides it back like a boss. Next, Hercules was to capture the man-eating mares of King Diomedes. These horses were fed on human flesh and were so aggressive they'd chow down on a beefy hero like Herc for breakfast. But does our boy back down? Hell no. He pushes Diomedes right into the stables and feeds those psycho horses their own king. He then snatches those pacified horses, slaps a leash on them, and rides off into the sunset like a damn cowboy. For the ninth labor, Herc's gotta swipe the belt off the Amazon queen Hippolyta. We're talking about a badass bitch with a belt so powerful it could make even Zeus's lightning bolts look like limp noodles. Herc sails right into Amazon territory and flashes those million-dollar muscles. Hippolyta was so fucking charmed, she tossed that belt over like it was the last goddamn drink at a bacchanalian orgy. Next, Herc has to cross a scorching desert to steal some cattle from a freaky monster with 3 bodies joined at the waist. But with the heat turned up to 11, Herc's patience wore thin. So, in a fit of frustration, he shoots an arrow at the sun itself. This little act impressed Helios, the god of the sun, and he decided to throw him a golden chariot pulled by divine horses. When Herc finally reaches Geron's turf, he wrestles him to the ground and steals his cattle. That should have been Herc's ticket out of Misery Town, but leave it to Hera to play dirty. She's not satisfied yet. She has Eurystheus scratch 2 labors off the list. 1. The Hydra, cause Herc had a little help from his nephew Iolaus. 2. The stables cause Herc took a paycheck for his troubles, and just like that, Herc's back to square one, with 2 more labors hanging over his head. The first extra gig is snatching 3 golden apples from the Garden of the Hesperides. First off, Herc snags the shape-shifting old man of the sea, squeezing him like a sponge until he spills the beans on the garden's location. Fast forward to the garden, where Hercules stumbles upon Atlas, the poor sucker stuck playing sky support for eternity. Now, Atlas is itching for a break, and Hercules sees his chance. He strikes a deal with Atlas, offering to take his place for a bit if Atlas fetches him those golden apples. When Atlas returns with the apples, he's had enough of sky duty. He's got a new plan, to deliver the apples himself, leaving Hercules stuck with the heavy lifting. But Hercules ain't no chump. He plays along, pretending to adjust his cloak, and then bam, he ditches Atlas faster than you can say, "Screw you, sky guy." The final showdown was the capture of Cerberus, the three-headed pet dog of Hades and the gatekeeper of the underworld. Herc goes to the underworld and asks Hades to borrow the dog for a little stroll topside. Hades says sure, but there's a catch. Herc's gotta take down Cerberus with his bare hands, no weapons allowed. Herc wrestles Cerberus to the ground and slings it over his back like it's a goddamn lapdog. Eurystheus nearly shits himself and scurries into his wine jar again like a little bitch, whimpering for Herc to return Cerberus to the underworld. Just like that, Hercules is absolved of his guilt, attains immortality, and joins the ranks of the divine as a full-fledged god.